most people's morality is anchored to social emotions and quintessentially moral emotions that are not good guides for living a good life or building a good society.
Good by what metric precisely, Sam? Good by the ideal, or good by like historical or realistic standards?
Hi, my name is Leah, and I just want to say welcome so much to Sam and Richard,
Leah.
both to
Hey,
coming
thank
back
you.
to Vancouver. And I would just say on meditation, Sam recommended that I do a 10-day meditation retreat, and all I can say is it did wonders for my marriage that I was quiet for 10 days. So my question is future focused, and in two parts. So you had me at hello with atheism. You have had me at hello with your book, Waking Up on Consciousness.
Should probably take you a little bit longer than that before you decide if you want to be an atheist. I know she's using it just as a term, figure of speech, but generally it should take you a while to come to a conclusion that serious.
I very much agree that it just sure looks to be a lot better to focus on how we can actually just be better and nicer and focus on those qualities that are measurable. And I have a question. The first part is, what are the biological or societal hurdles or roadblocks that we need to get past in our evolution as humans to do more of that? I already agree that, religion hasn't helped, but what are the other sort of case studies that you can pull up biologically or culturally that we could use to make this faster? And secondly, it strikes me that the second part is resource allocation has been a challenge, and that's been one of the drivers of tribalism, is that in the quest for...
A bit delayed of a reaction here, but it's interesting that she frames it as overcoming something biological. Right, that's very interesting. And to a large extent, human beings have to do that, but there is an extent where human beings trying to run up against their own nature directly might be folly, might be a futile effort. So when you're saying we have to overcome this thing about our biology, a lot of the times that's fine. But you got to be careful with that, because you get to utopian territory pretty quickly if you think there's just anything biological that I don't like for ideological reasons we can just overcome. I know she's not saying that, but just general word to the wise is be careful when you're throwing around ideas like that. It's you get to utopian territory pretty quickly.
For resources, we've not been nice to each other. Given the abundance that we are seeing that technology is creating and sort of the democratization of that abundance, will that solve some of these problems and leapfrog us ahead in evolution?
I find your questions as long and leading as mine.
Well, briefly, there's a lot there, but I think the
Sub to the Pangburn channel, everybody.
One of the greatest problems we have, and there's an obvious, this connects directly to what Richard was saying about evolution, the evolution of tribalism. We have our morality, most people's morality is anchored to social emotions and quintessentially moral emotions that are not good guides for living a good life or building a good society.
Good by what metric precisely, Sam? Good by the ideal, or good by like historical or realistic standards? There's something. He's gonna get into it, so maybe I shouldn't bite off his tongue here, but it's something I hear a lot, which is that this is not good or this is horrible. But again, you have to remember what framework are you working in when people say something like that. Do you mean in terms of historical context, this hasn't worked or hasn't created stable societies, or are you saying that it's less than your ideal that you have in your head? So good rule of thumb when you're having conversations and people start throwing around things like that, good question to ask. But let's let them get through it.
Emotions like disgust, right? So some people find homosexuality disgusting, or the idea of gay sex disgusting, and that is the end of the argument for them, right? It's that is enough to pass laws on, right? That's enough if you're in a theocracy. That's enough to justify throwing people off the top of buildings.
Well, that's kind of that's a little bit of an oversimplification, Sam, and I think he knows this, right? Because many religious people will give you a myriad of arguments as to why that is, other than just the emotion disgust. Now, you don't have to buy those arguments. I don't buy all of those arguments. But to pretend like all of opposition to homosexuality or anything else is just the emotion of disgust and not like broader social concerns or reproduction concerns or disease concerns or like whatever somebody could conceivably say. To say it's all at root just disgust and there's nothing else to it is it's a bit reductive, man. It's a bit of a straw man, I feel. And again, he's answering a question, so give him a little bit of leniency. He's not talking to a religious person at the moment, but yeah, that's pretty reductive, Sam.
So disgust is a very bad guide for our morality. And
Okay, is it though? Because you listed one example that's controversial, but I can give you like a million examples where disgust absolutely serves you right. It helps you decide what foods are rotten and which ones are not, stuff like that. And then in terms of morality, human beings are social creatures, and we've evolved with that in that social context, and therefore our disgust instincts have evolved. There are certain social behaviors that will create the feeling of disgust within you, like repeated lying to you or other types of deception. Maybe anger or abuse that you see in front of you will often cause an instinct of disgust. Now, you can say that you don't need disgust to make these distinctions, but to say that disgust has been a bad moral guide that's completely not good at showing morality, using one example where it may be erring is not enough to come to the conclusion that disgust is a bad moral guide. It's been guiding human morality for a really long time, and we're still here and we're doing pretty well, and we had societies that survived. So again, it's a bit of an overly reductive conclusion in my mind. Disgust is not perfect, sure, and there's many ways it can pathologize, and it should not be our only moral guidepost. But to say that it's a bad guy or that it's done a bad job, I think is just throwing out lots of babies with the bathwater. Let's say.
And desire is a bad guide as well. I mean, that we have things like lust and disgust and fear and xenophobia, which is just fear in a certain context.
Okay, well, it seems like he's saying bad in terms of not ideal, and then again, like this is what I said at the very beginning. So, earlier rants. If he just means bad as in not ideal, then sure, of course. But again, that's compared to your imaginary ideal as opposed to the reality of what human beings have been living in for a very long time. Desire and fear have also got human beings very far. They kind of motivate all creatures. And desire and fear can also indicate to you with pretty good accuracy a lot of moral or immoral behavior. Not all of it, because it's imprecise. But yeah, so if he just means bad as not ideal, then fine. But again, like compared to utopia, everything is bad. So
have to